Hey everyone, and welcome to the Student Ministry Conversations podcast, where each week we have conversations about student ministry. We hope each week we can pour into you so that you can go and pour into the lives of your students. Here are your hosts, Russell and Brent, with this week's episode.
All right, guys, welcome to the new podcast, Student Ministry Conversations. My name is Brent Aiken, and I am one of the hosts of Student Ministry Conversations. The other host goes by the name of Russell Martin. And Russell, tell us something about yourself, man.
My name is Russell Martin. I have been doing student ministry, youth ministry for 25 plus years, and in a variety of contexts. So I've done everything from volunteering, leading worship teams, part-time, full-time, really small church, medium to large size church, and all that goes with that. So camps and all those type of things. And I've recently actually moved into doing pastoral ministry. I'm the lead pastor at a church in Houston area. And so it's great because I get to use everything I've learned and pour into it in different ways. So for the past several years, I have kind of felt the call to start using what I know to teach other youth pastors, to share everything I know from the time that I have been a part of ministry. And pouring that in. And so I actually am a certified ministry coach. And so I work with youth leaders to help them figure out what's going on and how we navigate youth ministry and what are some things to help people get unstuck. And I think that's been a big deal even through this past year. And so with all the changes and everything that will happen, we'll probably cut that out because, this is hopefully should be the intro episode for everything. So not specific. So, but anyway, so I've been doing that for a while. And so that's where I am. I am doing this podcast with you, Brent, and I am doing ministry and just figuring it out as we go.
All right.
That made no sense.
And like I said at the beginning, my name is Brent Aiken. I have also been in youth ministry for a long time. I have little over 10 years of experience now as the primary lead. And then I have been leading as a volunteer or leading in some profession of youth ministry ever since I was a junior in high school when my youth pastor stepped down, and we didn't have a youth pastor for roughly a year into after that he stepped down. And so me and a buddy took on our youth program, and we with the very limited knowledge and understanding of youth ministry that we had, we led and coordinated all of our youth activities and events. And so that was kind of the goal and the dream behind this conversation start, is that Russell and I have a lot of youth ministry experience, but we don't want y'all just to hear about our experiences and our wisdom with the little that we have. But we want to hear from youth pastors from all walks of life. We want to hear from youth leaders from all walks of life. We want to hear from all size churches. We want to hear from different professions. We want to hear from full-time, part-time, bivocational, not on staff at all, volunteer youth leaders. And then also we want to kind of push the boundaries of how we can talk into different companies and different organizations on what we can learn from people outside of youth ministry, and what we can use and what we can take from their conversations and learn more about youth ministry. So the whole point behind this conversation was we want to hear every voice, and every voice has something worth listening to. And so that's our goal with this podcast. And we really just see a lot of benefit and a lot of future in the fact of the church as a whole can learn from everybody, but also student ministry can learn from everybody. So that's really where we're going with it. Russell, you have anything to add?
Yeah. So, yes, to answer the question, why did we start, or why did I start the podcast? This is actually my second time through doing a podcast. So we had the UMY Lead podcast, and that was generally focused toward Methodist youth ministry. And so as we had conversations and we looked and we wanted to expand out and to get new ideas and talk to people. And I think the main thing that came across my mind is I remember having conversations with student ministry, with other youth leaders. Like you're sitting after a dinner, or you're hanging out at a lock-in or you go to a National Youth Workers Convention and you go listen to the big speakers, which is great, but you also sit in the lobby and you're talking to other people and saying, hey, what's going on with your group? What's going on with your group? And I realized that I had some awesome conversations. I had some awesome things where I learned a lot from just talking with other youth leaders. And I realized that, there's a lot of value in those conversations. And I wanted to capture those. So the podcast is an attempt to capture those one-on-one or small group conversations with other youth leaders and find out, hey, what's going on in your context? We would come out of a session and we'd hear something about this big idea, and then we would sit and talk and go, well, how are you going to implement that in your group? So your group may be completely different than mine. You may have 10 kids. I may have 30. Somebody else may have 100. You may be a single campus pastor. Somebody else may be a multi-campus pastor, or somebody may be in camping ministry or in coaching or leadership development or whatever those things are. But how do we apply those things and how do we work those things into and what lessons can we learn from each other? And so that's what I wanted to do with this, was to continue that idea of capturing conversations. And then because I believe that everybody has something they know. And even if you know a little bit, you can teach someone who knows less. So whatever it is whatever it is you can do, you don't have to be an expert at something. None of us are experts. We only become more experts when we make more mistakes. And so everything that you have done and learned from, you can share. And I think it's one of the interesting things is I've had conversations with new youth leaders. And you would think, you want to have like the people who know everything and done it. And I've learned so much from young youth leaders who are just starting out because one, they don't know the rules. They don't know what you can and can't do or what you're supposed to not be able to do. And they have new ideas. And there's things that I have learned that I'm using in pastoral ministry as a church that I've learned from young youth leaders who are like, hey, why can't we do this? And I'm like, I don't know. That sounds great. Awesome. So to wrap all that up into one deal is the fact that we can all learn from each other. And I want this to be a place where we can do that. So what are you excited about as you look forward, not just specific episodes, but what excites you about the possibilities of the future of this platform in this area?
Well, I think you brought it up pretty well with the fact of it's not necessarily the big ideas that promote growth. It's the conversations afterwards that bring forth life. And so having those conversations, having those small, minor detail moments to where you can just sit down and talk about things that are going on and how they affect you, but not only how they affect you, but what you've learned in the process. That is what gives life. That is what gives change and growth. And it gives opportunities for people to really, really flourish because they're talking about things that they've experienced and what they know. And so that was kind of the whole premise behind this. I'm super, super excited because we want to just kind of bring that to a new light. We want to have those same conversation styles that are after the big thoughts at like the big youth worker conferences, but we want to do it on a much more small scale to where it's a one-on-one conversation with people. And I find, especially as we've started recording some of these episodes, that a lot of these episodes are really, really life-giving. I'm finding encouragement from them, even when I'm doing the podcast myself, when I'm the one interviewing the person, or when I'm listening in on the ones that you've done. It's just a great opportunity for learning. It's a great opportunity for self-reflection. And I'm really, really excited about these episodes. So we do have a few coming down the pipe, though. So Russell, out of like, say, the first 5 or 6, what ones are really, really exciting for you?
Well, I mean, we have 4 coming up, and there's my first 2 are really, really exciting that are coming out. Emily Farrell, she'll be our first actual interview podcast that we drop. And so she is a camp leader. She's an assistant director at Camp Challenge. And so she talks about camping ministry. She started off with this in October. So she got a job in October in the middle of the pandemic. And so she has a lot of expertise in navigating that. So she talks about being on the CDC websites and the camping websites and all the safety stuff, COVID-wise. She shares some games, no prep games that she's done. She talks about her call to ministry and how she's discerning that. But the most thing I got out of that was just the conversation and her excitement, her commitment to bringing students to Christ, and how camp plays a unique role in that, and how it fits into your overall ministry. The other one I had was Kate Garnes, and Kate is a motivational speaker. She spent a lot of time at Disney. She has written a book that's already out, and she has one that is coming out. But her first book talks about that mixtape of your life, like those things that you heard that people told you when you were young. You can't sing, or you can't do this, or you should do this. Those things, and how they have played over and over and over in her life, and how that shaped her to what she is now, and how she has redone and recreated those plays and those loops and those mixtapes. And I love mixtape because that's from my era. We would sit on the radio and try to record the songs that came off the radio and create the mixtape. But the thing I think about that is that it's permanent. Like that cassette tape, you can't just change those around. It is a permanent thing. And so she talks about rewriting those, erasing those, and replaying those. And she talks about what she learned from her time at Disney. She was at Disney for many years, and how she made that transition from she had everything, and then she had nothing. God said to write a book about joy, and so she's writing a book about joy. And after she started that process, she lost her job. She with her relationship change, and God was like, "Oh yeah, so I want you to write a book about joy whenever you have very little that the world would say to be joyful about." And so I'm looking forward to her book coming out. But it was another just an exciting conversation. She has her own podcast, and we'll put some links into those when we post her episode up. So those are two of mine that I've done so far. And so what is it that you have listened to that you are excited about with your first ones coming out?
Yeah. So the first two that I have going, first one that I recorded was with Daniel Acton, who's a youth pastor in Michigan. And we just talked about some very pressing opportunities in youth ministry, and that's student leadership. It's really a challenge sometimes, but it's one of the most growing and one of the most developing opportunities that we have, as far as like bringing students into a light where they have responsibilities and they take action in different situations in their lives and are in and out of the church. And so we spent time just talking about what does student leadership look like? How does that function? What does that mean for the capital C church? And what are we ultimately doing as a whole to better equip and prepare these students for the rest of their lives through student leadership? It was really, really good. And then the other one that I'm super excited about was with Stephen Gehring. He is a student pastor in Graham, Texas, but he also has his master's in biblical counseling. And his heart is behind pastoral care, and especially kind of transitioning out of this COVID phase where we've had to do lockdowns, and we've had to do quarantines, and we've had to do virtual ministry and everything else. Pastoral care, like the need for it, is at an all-time high. And so I really loved getting to sit down and have this conversation with him on not only how we ourselves can be in need of pastoral care, but how we can do it for others as well. And ultimately how we have to be continually on guard of our own mental health before we can go check and help other people with theirs. And so it was a super, super powerful and encouraging podcast. And I'm excited about all of these. They're all going to be so good.
Yep. And we have several more recorded already. So we are hoping to drop one every Thursday. And so we'll go live every Thursday. They will be up on the website. Brent, tell us the website again.
The website is studentministryconversations.org.
Yes. And we also have, now we are also on Instagram and Facebook. And so it's Talk Student Ministry. And so a little different than the website, but all the social media stuff is Talk Student Ministry. And we'll post clips. We already have a clip of Emily's already up on Instagram. And so we invite you to go follow us on Talk Student Ministry. But the website and the podcast, Student Ministry Conversations. Now, one thing I need to warn people about, or not to warn, but let them know, is there are a lot of podcasts out there that are like 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here. You can listen to it on your lunch break real quick. This is not one of those, and that's intentional because I think something magical happens when you're into minute 30 and you're really giving people a time to get into their stories. And so this is definitely a podcast to grab a cup of coffee and sit down, or maybe even, if you have a long road trip or something like that to queue up. So they're usually right about an hour with each of these conversations, but there's a lot in there. And so we will maybe do some timestamps that you can know where things are. But just know it's not a short tips and tricks or ideas or answering questions podcast. There is some links to these. But I think you'll find it very, very fulfilling and very helpful and motivational and inspirational when you do that.
Well, and I think there's beauty behind that in a lot of different circumstances, because we can't solve all the issues in student ministry in 10-minute windows, and we can't solve all the issues that we have in our lives in 10-minute windows. And sometimes it requires those deeper conversations. Sometimes it requires those thoughts to be elaborated on, and for those conversations really to kind of just like absolutely strain out every single thought and every single concept that you could possibly think of in order to make this work. And so that's really what we're trying to do with this. And I've listened to just about all of them, and I have been, just about every time I've listened, been like, that was an hour. There's no way that was an hour. Like, that felt like 20 minutes. How did I waste an hour on that? So, I mean, it almost feels like you do that like perpetual Netflix binging where you like sit down and like, I'm gonna watch one show, and then 3 hours later you're still watching. I mean, it feels like that to me. And so that's one of the things that I'm really excited about. The content is fantastic, and that's what makes it worthy of like being in that hour time frame.
So if you're listening to this now, we invite you to go ahead and subscribe. We're using the Anchor platform, which means that we are definitely on Anchor, on Google Podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So those main ones there. And so you can subscribe on any of those. We invite you to go subscribe and to like the Facebook and Instagram pages and on Twitter. Follow us. We'll put up things besides just the podcast. So we'll put up maybe some clips from the podcast. We'll have some blog posts that go along with those. And also, one of the things that Brent and I are active on is the Clubhouse. And so, Brent, why don't you tell us what Clubhouse is, and then a little bit about your room, and then I'll talk about my room on there as well.
Yeah. So if you've been living under a rock, no, I'm just kidding. If you have not heard of Clubhouse yet, Clubhouse is this new social media app. And I have to say it's different than any of the other apps out there for basically one large purpose. And the best way that I can think of describing it is like sitting in a room with a bunch of your friends having a conversation about something. There is no track, there's no theme. Well, there can be themes, but there's no track. There's no like, you have to sign up for this, or you have to do these 5 or 6 different things. You don't have to be a part of the group. You can set up groups, but it's just an opportunity to have great group discussion and have great opportunities for community. And through that, we have started different Clubhouse chats. I host one every Thursday morning. It starts normally around 7:45 Central Standard Time in the morning. And it's just a youth ministry recap where we come together as a community of youth pastors, and we just have an opportunity to kind of share how our last night of ministry went, whether it was Wednesday night or Sunday night or Friday night, whatever it was. We want to have a open space to where we can say, hey, last night was one of the best nights I've ever had in ministry, or last night was awful. Nothing went right. And we can celebrate with you in your victories, but we can also pray with you and provide support and advice for the nights that don't go so well. And so I've been super encouraged through those Clubhouse conversations. We've met a ton of new faces and and have a ton of new friends through the whole process. A lot of the people that we're podcasting on this podcast are from Clubhouse through who we've met during the last couple months. And we'll continue to use Clubhouse as an opportunity to have more and more engagement with the community that we have around us. And so it's been really, really cool. And then Russell, you're going to do something else with Clubhouse. So why don't you explain that?
Yeah. I'm going to do a room on Mondays afternoons. So we have Thursday morning and Monday afternoon. But my room is going to be really based on whatever the topic of the last podcast was. So with the fact that we have a lot of our people from Clubhouse, we'll actually have those there, hopefully. But we'll be talking about whatever it is that we discussed when it comes out. It can kind of help promote. So if the episode drops on Thursday, Brent can mention it on that Thursday morning room. And then it'll give us time for people to talk about it and then listen to it. And then on Monday, we'll kind of have a follow-up conversation. So there may be things that the podcast speaker didn't get to, wanted to talk about, but ran out of time or didn't think about or thought about later. And so it'll be a chance for that, and also a chance for people to ask questions and to get a little more in-depth from those conversations and to speak directly with whoever it was that was there. So if you don't have Clubhouse, the thing I like about it and that we haven't mentioned yet is it's all audio. So there is no video, there's no text chat, there's nothing else. It's all audio and it all happens in real time. And so that helps me with it a lot of times because I'll put it on the headphones or on the car radio while I'm driving, or in the headphones while I'm working around the house. I don't have to worry about making sure, my hair is straight or, anything is everything is, nothing in the background or anything like that. So it is all audio. It's like this podcast is right now. And so, that's the thing I like about it. And I'm looking forward to those conversations as they continue to go and continue to grow. And I hopefully we'll have a podcast coming soon talking about different social media and Clubhouse and where it can go, because I think there's some places it can go with ministry as it opens up to more and more people. So, but this is just kind of our intro episode, and we want to just give you an idea of what is coming out, what is coming forth. I hope that we'll actually do a little intro episode maybe every 6 weeks and talk about what the next 6 weeks conversations are and what we're learning and how we go. So do you have any closing thoughts?
No, we're just excited to hit the ground running. Like you already said, we have multiple podcasts already in production. We've recorded a ton of them, and we're ahead of the curve, and we hope to stay that way. So if you are listening to this and you're like, hey, I am a youth leader, notice I did not say youth pastor because we want everybody's voice. So if you lead youth in any area, in any vicinity, whether it's volunteer, paid, part-time, bivocational, or you know of the youth ministry in your church, but you still might have some good advice, we want to hear from you. So feel free to go and find us on social media, or you can go to the Talk Student Ministry social media handle, like we said, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We would love to hear from you, and we'd love to have you on the podcast if you think you have something that's worth sharing. And so we'd encourage you to do that so we can continue to put out great content from people that are just like you and just like us, because nobody's special. Nobody has it figured out. We're all doing this together. So that would be the last kind of tidbit I have.
Yeah. And I would say subscribe. And as these come out, if you would leave comments and reviews, that helps us get heard more and gets this out to more people. So just a quick note at the bottom, and where it's Apple or Google or Spotify or Anchor or wherever it is you're listening, if you will just give a quick note, a quick comment, a quick review, tell others when something goes on social, just post it, repost it, retweet it, share it, whatever it is that you do with that, and let us know the ways that we can provide more value. Because the key is I want to pour into youth leaders and to provide you with more value, make your lives easier and your ministry, take care of some things for you so that way you can be more effective. So hopefully you'll learn something from here that maybe cuts some time or gives you a new way to think of things. So whatever that is, we want to be able to help you. I love the fact that the kind of the new positions we're in, me being a pastor, a senior pastor at a church, you being in youth ministry, that kind of gives us some different perspectives. And I look forward to actually some interviews between us too, about how those things interact. So you can find me. I am RGM Music on Twitter and Instagram. and Facebook, and would love to talk to you, and also to find you on Clubhouse if you are there as well. Brent, where can we find you?
And mine's really easy. All my social media handles are Hey Brent Aiken. And so easy to find. AIKEN is my last name. Would love to connect with all y'all.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us for this first intro episode. And we hope to see you in future episodes as we connect with you as well.
Definitely.
Thanks.